Imagine watching an 8-year-old drive a riding lawnmower right into the side of your family van.
Oh, man. Yeah, that is a total nightmare scenario for anyone.
Right. Your first instinct, naturally, is probably to just yell, cut the engine, and, permanently ban them from operating heavy machinery.
Exactly. I mean, you immediately view that dented door as a complete catastrophic failure of supervision.
Yes. But what if you shifted your perspective? What if that dent in the door wasn't a failure at all, but actually the cheapest, most effective tuition you could ever pay to guarantee that child becomes a highly capable adult?
That is quite the reframe.
It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're deconstructing a profound paradigm shift in how we view education, human development, and ultimately independence. We are drawing from a really fascinating lesson script inside a homeschooling course. It's titled Empowered Homefront, specifically Lesson V5.1, and it's taught by an instructor named Lori.
And right out of the gate, we need to clarify that while this source material originates in a homeschooling context, the psychological framework it presents, it transcends the classroom entirely.
Right. It's not just about kids.
No, not at all. This isn't just a manual for teaching math or something. It's really a masterclass in behavioral psychology and even organizational leadership.
Exactly. Whether you're a parent trying to raise a functional human or, a manager trying to onboard a team of junior developers or just someone fascinated by how truly capable people are formed, our mission today is to extract the core blueprint for building genuine self-sufficiency.
Which is something I think we all desperately need to understand better.
Okay, let's unpack this. The curriculum immediately takes aim at what it calls the inherited system of education. For anyone listening, you already know the status quo ladder, right?
Oh, yeah. We all do.
You get the good grades, which unlock the good college, which eventually spit you out into the good job.
Yeah, we all share that baseline cultural assumption. I mean, it is the operating system for modern adolescence.
Right.
And because we all accept that ladder as reality, we naturally measure every single developmental milestone against it. We obsess over rubrics. We're constantly asking, is my child reading at the 90th percentile?
Or are they enrolled in enough AP classes to look competitive?
Exactly. But the curriculum introduces a massive conceptual roadblock here. It argues that this traditional ladder is deeply flawed.
Wait, flawed? How?
Because successfully climbing it really only proves one thing, that a human being successfully performed on command.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it provides zero evidence that they're actually becoming a capable adult who can manage their own calendar or balance a complex budget or, initiate a highly uncomfortable conversation with a colleague.
That hits hard. And there's a pivotal moment detailed in the curriculum that perfectly captures this tension. Lori's husband, Eric, is looking at their children, who, by the way, are actively checking all the right academic boxes.
Right, they're doing everything right.
Exactly. And he stops her cold with just one question.
Yeah.
He asks, what does a 25-year-old version of these kids look like?
Which is a highly uncomfortable question to ask yourself as a guide or a mentor of any kind.
Seriously. Because if all you've done is train someone to execute a rubric and pass a test, the answer to that question is, well, a 25-year-old who is completely paralyzed without a syllabus.
That's spot on.
It makes me think of training a high-performance agility dog. You can spend years training a working dog to run this really complex obstacle course. You blow a whistle, it hits the weave poles perfectly, you point, it jumps through a hoop.
Yeah, it looks brilliant and highly disciplined on a stage.
But if you take that exact same dog, drop it in the middle of a dense forest and expect it to survive, it freezes. It just sits there waiting for a command that isn't coming. The traditional ladder builds agility dogs, not wolves.
That's a remarkably accurate analogy for the psychological mechanisms at play here. The inherited system is essentially a compliance engine. It rewards the ability to follow a pre-designed path with high fidelity.
But let me push back on that a little bit, because corporate environments actually run on compliance. Society needs people who can follow instructions.
Sure, absolutely.
Like if you're managing a team and you have a rogue employee who just ignores the project specs, that's a massive liability. So aren't we doing kids or young professionals a disservice if we don't train them to perform strictly on a rubric? Is getting an A in calculus really a developmental blind spot?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the philosophy here is very careful to draw a distinction. It doesn't argue that traditional milestones or following instructions or understanding calculus are inherently bad.
Okay. So what is the issue then?
The argument is that they are entirely incomplete. The danger isn't the performance itself. The danger is that we, as a society, mistake that performance for actual generalized capability.
We confuse the ability to follow the map with the ability to actually navigate the wilderness.
Precisely. The core paradigm shift this lesson demands is that we change the central question of development. We have to stop asking, is this person keeping up with the syllabus? And start asking, is this person becoming more capable of functioning without me?
Wow, functioning without me.
Yeah. The ultimate goal is never the diploma. College, or a specific career track, might be a path for some, but it's merely a path. The actual destination is a self-sufficient adult.
Which completely changes how you measure success. And this is but that immediately creates a logistical nightmare.
Well, for sure.
If your goal is no longer just chasing a diploma, how do you track progress? If you're abandoning the Scantron and the quarterly report card, how do you know if you are actually building a capable 25-year-old? You can't just hand someone a self-sufficiency quiz.
No, you absolutely cannot. And this is where the curriculum introduces its core operational model, which they call the 5-stage self-sufficiency framework.
Okay, I love a good framework.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of looking at a chronological list of academic subjects, it breaks down the evolution of executive function and autonomy. And what's brilliant here is how early it demands we start, and how mundane the actual mechanisms are.
I really want to dive deep into the psychology of this framework because it completely reframes childhood chores. Instead of just listing these out, let's look at the underlying progression. The baseline foundation, the concrete core of this whole philosophy, starts at age 3.
Yes. And at 3, we aren't talking about prodigy-level achievements here.
Right, no one's doing algebra.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Self-sufficiency here is defined as simply putting toys in a bin when asked, placing shoes by the front door, and following a single-step instruction the first time it is given.
Just putting the shoes up by the door, but why does that matter so much?
Because of the cognitive scaffolding it provides. At 3, putting shoes by the door isn't about having a clean house. It's the very beginning of environmental mapping and impulse control.
Interesting.
You're teaching a developing brain that its actions have a designated place in the physical world, and that it has a responsibility to maintain that environment.
Which evolves directly into the age 6 milestones. By 6, the expectation shifts. Now they're making their own bed, putting their backpack in the exact same spot every single day, and critically finishing one task completely before jumping to the next.
Notice the transition there. We moved from simply mapping the environment at age 3 to sustaining attention and organizing physical resources at age 6.
That is quite a jump, cognitively.
It really is. Finishing one task before starting another is the absolute bedrock of complex executive function.
Yeah.
If you don't build that neural pathway at 6, you cannot expect them to manage a multi-phase project at 26.
Okay, so that's the baseline spatial and task awareness. But then the framework hits age 10, and we enter what I would call the friction stage. The cognitive load scales up dramatically.
It does.
At 10, they are expected to manage their own morning routine entirely. The curriculum uses a specific term here, starting their brain food without being told.
Right, and just for context, in this specific home education model, brain food refers to their self-directed morning reading or cognitive warm-ups or independent study. Gotcha.
But the mechanism is what matters. It means initiating a challenging mental task without an adult functioning as an external alarm clock or a cheerleader.
They have to generate their own momentum. And the other massive milestone at 10 is handling a sibling disagreement before going to an adult to solve it. This feels like the most critical pivot in the entire framework to me.
It absolutely is. Think about the mechanics of a sibling dispute. It's highly emotional, the stakes feel huge to the participants, and the instinct is to immediately appeal to a higher authority, the parent to act as a judge.
All right, Mom, he hit me.
Exactly. When you force a 10-year-old to resolve it themselves, you're forcing them to practice emotional regulation, negotiation, and compromise. You are flat out refusing to be their emotional buffer.
Which perfectly prepares them for the external world, because by age 14, the framework demands that they're interfacing directly with society.
Yeah, this is where it gets real. At 14, they are expected to research complex topics independently. They're seeing a project through from conception to absolute finish. And most importantly, they are communicating directly with adults, coaches, employers, mentors, without the parent acting as a middleman.
If you think about the modern workplace, how many entry-level employees struggle to draft an email to a department head because they're terrified of communicating with authority?
Too many, way too many.
Right. If a parent is always stepping in to email the soccer coach about a myth practice at age 14, That teenager never builds the psychological calluses required to self-advocate.
Which brings us to the capstone, age 18, the capable adult. The framework states that at 18, they don't need to be told twice to execute a responsibility. They contribute voluntarily to their community or household without being asked.
Which is huge.
But the defining characteristic is how they handle failure. An 18-year-old capable adult fails at something hard, recovers their equilibrium, and tries again.
That is the ultimate metric. Resilience. Not the absence of failure, but the engineered capacity to absorb it and move forward.
I look at the progression of this framework from age 3 to 18, and it's exactly like pouring the foundation of a house. In our standard culture, we are completely obsessed with the roof.
Oh, 100%.
We stare at an 18-year-old and we panic about the architectural aesthetics. What college are they going to? What's their major? What does the roof look like? Meanwhile, we entirely ignore the foundational concrete pour, which was a 3-year-old learning impulse control by putting their shoes by the door, or a 10-year-old learning negotiation during a fight over a TV remote. We want a magnificent heavy roof, but we're trying to build it on top of loose sand.
When you drop a massive heavy roof, like moving out, managing a budget, or navigating a toxic roommate onto a non-existent foundation, the structure inevitably collapses.
It has to.
That's exactly how you get a 25-year-old with a prestigious master's degree who suffers a complete nervous breakdown because their manager gave them slightly critical feedback.
But here is the lingering logistical issue for you, the listener, if you're trying to implement this. In the inherited system, I get the comfort of a report card. I get a letter grade that validates my parenting or my management style. Under this framework, how on earth do I grade a 10-year-old's negotiation of a sibling dispute?
You don't. And that is a non-negotiable rule in this philosophy. The curriculum explicitly states that none of this requires a test. All of it requires practice.
Practice, not tests.
Right. The entire premise relies on the understanding that capability is forged through thousands of daily, mundane repetitions. It is not proven on a Tuesday afternoon pop quiz.
Which requires a massive reallocation of our energy. Because if these skills aren't on a standardized test and you aren't sitting at a kitchen table filling out a worksheet titled How to Talk to Your Boss, where exactly is the instruction happening?
This brings us to the most actionable concept in the curriculum, the invisible classroom.
The invisible classroom. This is the idea that life itself is the curriculum. Every errand you run to the hardware store, every messy disagreement in the living room, every botched backyard projects, that is the actual lesson.
Exactly.
You don't have to fabricate artificial learning scenarios. You just have to recognize the organic friction that is already happening and let it play out.
And the curriculum provides incredible, highly specific proof points of this in action. It details the trajectory of a boy named Tyler.
Yes, the lawnmower incident from our intro. Let's dive into the mechanics of what actually happened there.
So Tyler was integrated into this invisible classroom model early. He was given real, tangible tasks starting at age 3, not pretend tasks.
Real stakes.
Right. By the time he was 8, he was operating a riding lawnmower. And as we established, he crashed it and dented the family van. He immediately came inside, confessed to his parents, and faced the consequences.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. My first reaction is sheer anxiety. It must be absolutely terrifying to let an 8-year-old operate heavy machinery near a vehicle. It makes me wonder, does building true self-sufficiency require the adults in the room to intentionally tolerate costly, chaotic mistakes?
What's fascinating here is how the curriculum directly addresses that tension. Tyler is not framed as an exceptional genius child. He is simply a child who was handed real responsibility and trusted to grow into the weight of it. The key differentiator is the word real.
Not a plastic toy lawnmower that blows bubbles.
Exactly. Handing an 8-year-old a plastic toy teaches them absolutely nothing about physics, consequence, or spatial awareness. When Tyler dented the van, the parents did not view it as a failure of their model.
Even though it was expensive.
Right. They viewed the cost of that dent as the necessary tuition paid in the invisible classroom. If you artificially shield a child from the possibility of denting a parked van at 8, you exponentially increase the likelihood that they will total a car at 16 because their brain never learned to respect the weight and momentum of real responsibility.
Tuition paid in the invisible classroom. That completely shifts the paradigm of mistake. And the psychological payoff of that restraint is incredible. Because, as the curriculum details, Tyler was nervous around the equipment for a while.
Which is a natural consequence.
Yeah, but the very next summer, he didn't avoid it. He asked to do the entire yard himself, cut, edge, and leaf blow. His parents agreed. He managed the entire property all summer, earned his own money, and never required a single reminder. By age 10 and 11, he was confidently giving presentations to rooms full of adults.
Because he already knew how to navigate high-stakes environments. There's another example provided, Kaylee. She built and launched a comprehensive digital course from start to finish before she turned 13 on a topic she was passionate about.
But let's look at the how of that. How does the 12-year-old launch a digital course without it just becoming her parents' project?
The mechanism is entirely about the parent stepping out of the executive function role. The parent becomes a consultant, not a project manager.
Ah, that's a crucial distinction.
It is. They don't set Kaylee's deadlines. She does. If she hits a technical wall with the software, the parent doesn't swoop in at midnight to write the code for her. Kaylee has to research the solution herself or experience the natural consequence of a delayed launch. It's an exercise in pure self-sufficiency.
But let's be honest with ourselves here. Giving people, whether they're your kids or your employees, real responsibility, stepping back and actively watching them make a mess of things is agonizing.
It really is.
It goes against every single protective, micromanaging instinct we possess as adults.
It requires immense psychological restraint.
Yep.
You have to actively suppress your own desire for immediate efficiency in order to prioritize their long-term development.
So what does this all mean for the person actually trying to implement this? Because the psychological toll of this approach seems incredibly daunting. If you're managing this process, you have to survive in an absolute validation vacuum.
This raises an important question about how we, as mentors, validate our own success in a system that refuses to hand out grades. We are socially conditioned to crave the immediate dopamine hit of an external metric.
Right. We want the gold star. We want the A+ on the refrigerator. If you're a manager, you want the quarterly performance review that says your team exceeded expectations, so you know you're a good leader. Delaying that gratification for years, just waiting for some invisible proof of capability to finally manifest, feels nearly impossible.
The curriculum is extremely candid about this hidden sacrifice. Lori warns that there is no report card for building a capable human. There is no bumper sticker that proudly declares, "My kid successfully navigated a complex interpersonal conflict without my intervention."
Yeah, my kid paid the tuition in the invisible classroom doesn't quite have the same ring to it on the back of a Honda Civic.
It doesn't. And the text openly acknowledges that on some days, you'll desperately wonder if any of this is actually working, because the evidence of executive function and resilience remains invisible for a very long time.
You're down in the mud, pouring the concrete, and you can't see the beautiful roof yet. You just see wet cement.
Precisely. But the curriculum provides a very specific, quiet vision for what ultimate success looks like. It isn't a loud validation. It isn't a graduation stage. It's a moment.
A single moment.
The text describes a scenario where the child runs into a wall. They encounter something genuinely hard, a schedule conflict, a failing project, a dispute with a peer, a situation where you, the adult, are entirely absent, and they handle it. They regulate their emotions, they assess the variables, and they solve it completely on their own.
And the most beautiful, critical part of that vision is that you only find out about it later. They casually mention it over dinner, or you hear about it in passing from a third party, and in that quiet moment, it hits you. You didn't have to step in. They had the capacity to carry the weight.
That is the payoff. Lori closes the lesson with a sentiment that perfectly anchors this entire psychological shift. She says, "The goal was never a diploma. It was always the person holding it. The proof of your effort is coming. It just takes a lot longer to show up than a standardized test score."
The goal was never the diploma. It was always the person holding it. That is a phenomenal distinction to keep front of mind. For you listening right now, whether you're raising a toddler, managing a team of new hires at a tech startup, or even just trying to audit your own level of independence, the framework we unpack today remains exactly the same.
The principles of autonomy and executive function are completely universal.
They truly are. When you shift your focus from demanding that the people around you simply perform on command to genuinely cultivating their deep internal capability, it changes every single interaction. It means you have to start tolerating the messy, inefficient learning process. It means trusting them with real stakes, not plastic toys.
It means valuing the unseen, unglamorous foundation over the highly visible but often incredibly fragile roof.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on today. If the status quo ladder of performing on a rubric is indeed as incomplete as this philosophy suggests, is it possible that our entire modern corporate and societal structure is built on a massive illusion of capability? We place so much blind faith in resumes, degrees, and perfectly formatted quarterly metrics. But perhaps the true mark of a highly advanced, resilient society isn't how well its citizens can pass standardized tests. Perhaps the real mark of advancement is how much tolerance that society has for the messy, ungraded, van-denting mistakes that are actually required to build self-sufficient adults. Next time you see a dented van, maybe don't judge the driver. Maybe just admire the invisible classroom.